The other thing that I wanted to ask about on this one that's sort of been a secondary question is, okay, if we can't have templates in duels, but what about 1v1 in war games? Is that something we're looking into?
Yes, we are looking into it. There's some technical challenges. It's not just, unfortunately, it's not as simple as changing a 2 to a 1.
Right.
In terms of the minimum requirements.
Okay.
Players are automatically placed in a party when they go in there. We don't have a system that really says, oh, you're a party of 1.
Right.
So there's just work to do there. It's not trivial. But we think that we don't see any reason not to allow you to do war games of 1v1. So we're going to work towards that.
Nice.
Super hot fire. And this is an incredibly popular question. Who asked, can we please get solo queue for RBGs? And obviously we've seen a lot of requests for solo queue for rated arenas as well. I think it's less of a request for arenas just because skirmishes exist.
Sure.
And it's still at least relatively similar. Obviously, the people you're facing in skirmishes aren't necessarily the people you'd be facing in rated BG or rated arenas. But for RBGs, the difference between a random battleground and a rated battleground is so, well, it's different.
Yeah,
it's
it is,
very,
absolutely,
very different. How do you feel about the idea of solo queue?
So we like the idea, and I don't want to say yes or no to it. I think I wanted to take this opportunity to maybe just share some of our thoughts about this.
Okay.
And particularly, I think a lot of the challenges we foresee with this. I just want to stress probably that we don't think this is any small feature. This isn't just take skirmishes and turn on rated problems. Put rating on it. There's a lot of issues here. First off, to think about what, let's say 3v3 for example, or RBGs, you have 3 healers, and you have, in the case of RBGs, you have 3 healers and 7 DPS. So that's just a little bit higher than a 2-to-1 ratio.
Right.
DPS to healer. In arenas, you have 2-to-1.
Right.
2 DPS, 1 healer. There's probably the more realistic ratio of people playing the game is more like 4 DPS for every 1 healer. So to do solo queue for either of those 2 brackets, we're going to have a healer problem.
Right.
That could be solved, we think, by trying to incentivize people to play healers, giving them extra benefits, extra rewards. Certainly something we can address, but that is something we're going to have to identify and solve in that situation. The problem is, our game, I know a lot of people point to a lot of other games that, hey, any competitive game out there now has solo queue, solo ranked queue. And it's true, but we have to think about a couple things. Using some other Blizzard games, for example, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, when a player queues for that button, his role is completely undefined.
Sure.
He can go into the match, he can choose to play a tank, he can choose to be a DPS, he can choose to be a healer. That is not the situation in World of Warcraft. If you queue as a warlock, you are damned. And that's what you're going to come in as. So we have to deal with the fact that we have a lot of different roles going on, and not necessarily the same number. The population does not reflect the bracket as well. So we don't want to run into a situation where we have twice as many DPS queuing as we have healers, and we're trying to make a team of equal skill and equal MMR, and the DPS are waiting a very long time, and eventually they get placed in a match, and the healer, his MMR is probably going to be different than the DPS, and they, perhaps if they're higher, they are terrorizing the guy for being lower MMR and blaming him for a loss, and that kind of pushes healers to not even want to participate.
Yeah.
So that is a real problem that we would definitely have to deal with. Terrorizing the guy for...
I think more people are scared to queue 3v3 because you have to join a group with 2 complete strangers and talk with them. You don't even know if they're friendly or not, and they'll nerd rage you anyways if you lose. Like, I've been walking around Dalaran checking to to see if people actually PvP, and a lot of people, they don't even touch arenas. Like they have 0-0. 0 games played in 2s and 0 games played in 3s. Alright, here we are. I'm logged in. Bam. 0 games played. Here's another. 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 0 games played. Okay, somebody has to play some game here. There we go. 1 person. This guy's a prestige mount. He better have it. There we go. 2 people. Do you see that? There's so many people that haven't tried PvP. And I feel bad for them. Actually, I don't. PvP's not in a good place. But yeah, you can see that people don't queue. Like, I've talked to a lot of my PvE friends. I have Korean friends that only PvE. Like, they want to play PvP, but then they don't want to go through the troubles of finding partners. Or they don't want to get in voice and get yelled at. So Holinka said people are like not gonna like getting yelled at or getting furied after you lose, but I think that's for every game. Let's be fair, you either played a Heroes game or Overwatch, and if you lose, people will blame each other. That's normal, that's for every game, honestly. So you can't just say that there. Sounds like an excuse. Like, I've had times where this guy has lower CR than me but played way better, and it's like he just couldn't find partners to play with. You feel me? Just because they're lower doesn't mean they're bad. They just couldn't find the right people to play with.
Another is composition. Our game is very reliant on the synergy between the different classes. So, you know, if we were to say, put you into a threes match that perhaps you don't feel is a very good comp for your spec, you're going to be angry at the matchmaker and you're going to be blaming the loss on the matchmaker.
I know a lot of people are worried about that. Like, that's the one question that I was really thinking about too. I would like it to be random so that there's challenge and it's more fun that way. But if people are worried about that, I feel like they can make a check mark. Wow, this is some horrible quality. And you make a check mark, warrior, hunter, DK, demon hunter, mage, and there's healers too, of course. Mistweaver, druid, disc, pally, etc, okay? You could open up this check mark and you can just check the people that you would like to queue with. Say I'm playing a red, then of course I would like to queue with hunter or DK, and for healer I would choose druid or disc priest or even mistweaver. Like, if we have this check mark and then queue, like you would queue into the comp you want to play, and that would solve everything. Question mark?
Then also, just, you know, your matchmaking rating, whether that is going to be based on your spec or your class. You know, right now each character has their MMR no matter what they're playing, but you know, you get into a group with someone else and you kind of have an agreement that, hey, I'm going to play holy even though I don't always play holy. In this situation, somebody could be like the world's best ret and just switch to prot. And all of a sudden, you know, you're at a very high level and you're like, why am I playing with this prot paladin at 2800 MMR? And so that could lead to some frustration.
I think for that part, there's a solution. Whenever we change our talents, make it so that our rating is different. So if I never played arena as prot, my rating will be 0 in prot. If I change to holy, this will be another rating too. 0, 0, 0. If I play red, I'll go back to my original MMR and CR. I think that would be a good thing. A lot of work though. A lot of work. But I think that's the only way because that wouldn't be right. Like I play red and then suddenly I decide to go holy, and I queue in holy as 2500. Like that's not chill. Like if I change to holy, I should start with 0 CR.
There's always frustration with chats and harassment that have to be dealt with. Rated brings all of that up to a whole new level.
Sure.
If you're in a random battleground and you're frustrated by losing, that's kind of just like, well, I got less honor than I would have liked to have gotten. If you're also losing rating, like losing persistent progression, that's a big challenge. And so we need to build systems to deal with that. We need to deal with systems so how you report guys who are throwing a match on purpose or don't even show up at all or whatnot. So there's a lot of work to be done there. If you look at all these solo queue systems, they always have the challenge of do you put solo players up against pre-made players?
Right.
That's a very frustrating thing. You don't want, a lot of players don't want that to happen. So how do we address that problem? Do we, just say that our current bracket is everybody can just solo queue for that, and so sometimes solos go up against threes, or we say no, only threes can only ever go against threes, and
real queue.
Solos can only ever go against solos. It's not like it's an unsolvable problem, but it's certainly things we would need to address, and there's a good amount of work there. And just lastly, I know I'm going fairly long on this particular question, but this being at Blizzard, we have the luxury of seeing how other teams work and who try to solve these problems. Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, games that are 100% PvP games, and where solo rated is kind of their end game.
Right.
World of Warcraft is a very big game, and while it's a very big team, I see the size of teams that work on solo queue rated matchmakers. It is a very big time commitment, a very big from a programmer standpoint, from a design standpoint. There's just a lot of work there. So I'm not saying we are not going to do it. I think I would not disagree that if we have solo queue rated arenas or solo queue rated RBGs, more people would be participating in arenas and RBGs than currently do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't disagree with that at all. I just want people to appreciate that this is a significant thing for us to do.
Yeah.
It has to be done right. It can't be done recklessly or haphazardly. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. It's probably just not something we can turn on in a small patch. It's going to be a lot of work to sort that out.
Yeah. I just want to hammer on that point a little bit there, is that we're not saying that, well, you're not saying
no, I'm not.
That these are insurmountable problems. We're not doing it because these issues and we don't feel like dealing with it. Like there are ways that we can solve all these problems. It's just a matter of making sure that we do it right, making sure that all that effort is worth it in the case of another theoretical thing that we could be doing for PvP in some other way. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We like the idea though,
and we know see it's brought up, and we just want to openly discuss and honestly discuss what we see the challenges are there, and we know we have a smart group of people playing our game, and they can respect that and kind of appreciate it and see that hey, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
That's all.
I respect
and
that.
maybe
Please
people
solo
watching have
queue.
some suggestions on how we could deal with those as well. That's always appreciated feedback. Let's move on. Next question comes from Griever. Actually, this kind of relates, so we'll go ahead and go through this question from Griever, who asked, finding partners is currently one of the biggest barriers of entry to rated PvP. Is anything planned to address that? So obviously, if we were able to come up with a satisfactory solo queue system, that would help this a lot. Is there anything else that we could do?
I think we need to perhaps, I'd love to hear more feedback about people's experiences in the group finder, what is going well for them or what's not going well for them. I think there's a lot of value in a group finder like solution to this problem.
Talk about
because
this,
what is nice about a solo queue is you can just press a button and play. What's bad about it is you just press a button and you're given players, and so they're very disposable to you, and so the way you treat them is as if I don't need you, I can just press this button and get 2 more people.
Right.
Group finder, it takes effort to put a group together.
You have achievements?
Surprise! face!
You can get more significant bonds being with these people because, it took time to get the group together. They don't want to just kick you. You don't want to just be kicked. People kind of act on their best behavior as a result. And so I'd love to know what we can do to make that system work better for you and the challenges that you're having with it.
And I do think it's worth noting that there should always be some level of a barrier to entry to rated PvP because it is a very serious, very sort of hardcore play style.
Yep.
And people who accidentally stumble across it and do it, like they'll do it once, they'll annoy the people that they were grouping with, and then they'll leave. And so now we have one person who's upset because they got into the content that they shouldn't have been doing in the first place, and two other people who are upset and inconvenienced because they just wasted 30 minutes of their time.
Yep.
So I think I don't, obviously, I agree that the current barrier to entry is maybe a little bit higher than it needs to be, but I do think that the end goal of there's no barrier to entry whatsoever wouldn't be a great one.
Yeah.
Who asked, can we get a page on the official WoW site or even a forum post somewhere that lists the current state of each spec's PvP stat template and ability modifiers? So I can actually talk to this one a little bit from the community side of things. It's something we've actually been talking about a lot, is trying to find better ways to get that information out to you guys. We had a forum post, I think, during beta that we were keeping some of that stuff together with. The problem is, as additional changes roll in, keeping that accurate actually becomes a significant amount of time that, again, could be spent on other things like responding to concerns on the forums and so on. And B, it's just kind of difficult information to really get across concisely in that sense. But I know we're talking about it a lot. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, so two things, I guess, are one, spell tooltips, they do change when you go into a rated environment to reflect the damage that they actually do in PvP. And your character sheet does change to reflect the proper amount of value that you actually have.
Sure.
We've moved a lot of that information from a data standpoint. We've moved it from the server side to the clients, so that anyone who wants to improve the presentation on that for a specific group of people could do that via an add-on, or if fan sites wanted to collect that information and present that, they would be able to do that too. It's just a challenge in game to say, hey, every demon hunter that ever goes into a battleground, here's a place where you can see that your primary stat is reduced by 30%, and have that in any way feel good for players. And that is just a general thing. It's also a complicated system where, the way our itemization works in the game, casters actually have a lot more primary stat on their weapons than a melee character who gets a lot of power from the weapon damage that it does. So casters just have more, they have a higher multiplier on their primary stats than other classes. So it can be a little confusing on why is this number that way. So presenting it in the game can be just more confusing than, quite honestly, than it's worth. Whereas I think a lot of people just, go out, play as they normally would play, and feel like they're powerful or whatnot.
Obviously, the more hardcore audience.
That'll be a meme.
Yeah. All right. Question here from Vitor said, would it be possible to show the title reward range on the official website? Obviously, there's a couple of third-party sites that people tend to look at that out there. For this season, like you were saying, we're planning on having like a forum post or something, at least like a week or so out, that says, here's what we kind of think at this exact moment in time where things might end up. So it's going to be a little bit of a guess, a little bit of an estimate, and definitely not a firm, if you reach this rating, you are guaranteed to get Gladiator sort of thing.
And that's one of the biggest concerns is, when you see it on another site, maybe
know
they're
that they're
wrong,
guessing.
or maybe they're guessing. When you see it coming from us, you could very well be like, hey, I hit that rating and I did not get my reward. What gives? And, the way that the system works, we cannot predict the future on exactly where it will end. So to give you the information ahead of time, we have to say, this is a projection. These ratings change, and you just have to keep that in mind. And not until the end of the season when we actually post. We plan on doing a much better job of that, and we would like to see this information out to you. So look forward to that.
Nice.
I think it's also cool to, especially for like the lower titles, because a lot of people
Sure. Yeah.
don't necessarily realize, wait, I could have gotten a Challenger or something if I just played a few more games. Oh, I
so
wish I'd known.
Even for the high-end guys who are asking this,
Yeah.
that's a great secondary benefit. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I have another question from Vitor here.
Oh, double question.
Yeah.
Vitor.
That's how much we like him.
It's your day.
He said, I miss a place to test my healing with an active PvP template. Can we get some kind of proving grounds for that?
Yep. I think that's a great idea, and I think that would be cool. We definitely think that the game could really benefit from like a PvP hangout of sorts. A place where players can go and duel, and we kind of lost that from a social element when we removed the PvP vendors. There's no place that people just kind of know that everybody's going to show up at.
Yeah.
And we think going forward, that's something we'd love to design in the game, is a place for people to go and hang
It
out.
could even have
PvP.
PvP templates active for duels.
It could. Indeed.
That would be cool. Not in 7.2.
Not in 7.2. Not in 7.2.
Okay. But yes, good idea.
I don't even know if that would happen this expansion.
Yeah, work on solo queue first.
Yeah.
More
But
important.
still, something that sounds like a good idea, and we'll look into in the future. Question here from Sneaky Rhino 1, who asked, are you looking to address the 4 to 5 Shadow Priest or Moonkin stacking in Rated Battlegrounds? Currently, a lot of classes and specs are left out. Thanks. Well, thank you, Sneaky Rhino 1, for this question. Class stacking, especially, I know Shadow Priest and Moonkin in RBGs. But
so first, I saw like when we kind of addressed some of these questions earlier in the community, people said, "Oh, I thought you only balance the game for 3v3 or whatnot." We do focus a lot of our balance time on 3v3 arenas, but RBGs is also a part of the game. It's part of the game that is very fun, and even myself included, one of my favorite forms of PvP. And we've kind of gotten to a place we're okay with some classes being better in one format of PvP than another. Some classes are better than dueling. Some classes are stronger in 3v3. Some classes are stronger in 10v10. But we've certainly gotten to a situation right now with Balanced Druids and Mistweaver Monks in particular in RBGs where this is a problem. There are too many.
When you want 5 Moonkins and 3 Mistweavers as 8 of your 10 people in an RBG, that's a problem.
It's a problem. So it needs to be addressed.
Thanks again, Brian, for being here and going through all these questions.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you heard some questions that you wanted to hear answered, and appreciate all your time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We will be right back with that WoW esports announcement. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am joined not once again. We got rid of Brian. We brought in Jeremy McIntyre instead. I'm usually the one in front of the camera up there flopping around, and you're behind the camera saying...
the table's kind of...
There's no Holinka. I don't watch.
It's kind of a where does that stop question as well.
Yes.
Like, do we have one for every bracket? Do we have one for
what?
in a? Is there a separate?